Good morning. It is Tuesday, June 3rd, and here we go. I'm going to tell a story from a past, it's a fun story. Has a happy ending, I guess. And I'm going to share with you books that I've read and a theme we're going to talk about because it's June. And I don't know, other things will happen as well. Let's talk about it. I just got back from my over 2 mile hike at the nature center. It was very crowded this morning. So all the old people in Long Beach have learned to walk at the nature center. So it's quite almost like bumper cars sometimes when you get so many people on the path. No, it's not quite that bad. But I did notice today there were probably 20 or 30 people who were walking through the park barefoot. And I appreciate that. I appreciate their commitment to earthing, as they call it. It is a beautiful practice. Anyway, being at the nature center is filling my heart with great joy. And I've been walking other places too. So I've been very good. I want to report I've walked every day this week. I have gotten over 5,000 steps and more every day, which for me is huge. Like I said, that one day I counted my steps where I sat in my chair all day. I only had 1,200 steps. And I was like, yeah, I might need to get my butt out of this chair. Anyway, I had a very wonderful walk this morning. I was listening to a book, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I happened upon something which I've never seen before. I found a giant bush of baby's breath in the wild. Somehow I thought that baby's breath was something that florists made in their back office or something. I never thought of it as being an actual plant, but this was huge, as you can see from the picture. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because it was kind of oh, look at that. Who expected that? Also, the squirrels in the nature park are something else. Talk about nervy. Those dudes will walk right up to you and do, please, may I have some more? And there are all these signs all over that say, don't feed the squirrels. They bite and they really don't like you. We stay away from the squirrels. Anyway, that was the way I've started my day today. And I feel energized. I feel alive. And oh my gosh, why can't I just remember that when I move my body, I feel better? I finished a book last night, actually. It's called Abigail and Alexa Save the Wedding. I had seen this come up on some pre-event, this is going to be released kind of post that I read somewhere, and everyone was saying, it's really cute, you should read it. And I thought, I'm in the mood for that. I'm in the mood for a book that is light and funny and those kinds of things, and it paid off. So this book is about two mothers, the mothers of the bridal party, the groom's mom and the bride's mom, and how they are so very, very different from one another. In fact, when you begin the book, you realize you really don't like one of them. She's really kind of a snooty pain in the butt. But of course, as life does, she grows, she changes. And it was actually a very, very cute story. I enjoyed it very much, which got me thinking, books that are about weddings. It's June, and I guess once upon a time, maybe it's still true, this is the month for weddings. And I was thinking about books I've read that had weddings as a theme that really enchanted me. And I will tell you about one of my very favorites. And I read this about 2 years ago. It's called Big Gay Wedding. Have you read The Guncle and The Guncle Goes Abroad and all of other Stephen Rowley's books? Well, this book is written by Byron Lane, who is Steve Rowley's husband. And it is darling. It's about a wedding between two gay men in the South and how people come to terms with it. And it is funny. It is poignant. It ticks all the boxes for me. Let's just say I really enjoyed that. And a secret tip, Byron Lane, the author of the previously mentioned book, used to be Carrie Fisher's personal assistant. True story. And he wrote a book called Wishful Drinking. And it's a novel But oh boy, is it about him and Carrie Fisher. And it's fantastic. It has nothing to do with weddings, but I wanted to prop that because that was even Wicked Stepmother has read that book and she loved it. So that is a funny book if you want to read that. Mentioned this book is one of my favorites of last year, The Wedding People by Alison Espach. Again, about a wedding. So these are books that the actual plot revolves around a wedding. You know, we have all kinds of books where there are weddings as part of the story, but this is truly about the actual ceremony. The Wedding People, as I described at the end of last year, is touted as a romance, but it's so much more. It was one of those books that just blew everybody out of the water because it was so different from what they expected and so very well done. A romance book I read last year, which also has the theme of weddings, is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren, and this was really fun. Wow, I ended up enjoying this book so much more than I thought I would. A woman has to go to a wedding with a man that she doesn't really know, and hilarity ensues. And this wedding is thoroughly over the top and hilarious. So that is definitely, if you're in the mood for a good romance that's funny and is centered around a wedding, do that one. Kwan, who writes romance / ridiculously over the top stories, think Crazy Rich Asians, and the 3 books that are in that trilogy. And by the way, all of those are about weddings as well. But the one I want to talk about is his most recent, it's called Lies and Weddings. And talk about over the top. I mean, we have volcanoes. We have the big island of Hawaii. We have insanely rich people. This book was entertaining cover to cover, utterly fluff and stuff, but so fun. If you need an escape on the beach this year, I recommend Kwan. You cannot go wrong with him. And if you haven't read all 3 of the Crazy Rich Asian books, don't do what I did. I read them all in 1 month, and by the end I was like, oh my God, I don't even know what's real anymore. So spread them out, but they're worth reading. Those are my wedding recommendations. No, well, they're not about weddings, of course. They're about books about weddings. So those are my recommendations. Fun bunch of books. I told you couple of weeks ago about Sarah Penner's new book, The Amalfi Curse, and I started it. I'm about 30% in, and I realized I'm not in the mood for this book. So I've set that aside. It's good. I'm not saying it's not good. It is very good. It's just not what I'm in the mood for right now. I may pick it up because I just finished that other one, but I'm kind of setting that aside. And so I picked up another book, and that's what I was listening to this morning when I was walking. It's called The Mysterious Bakery on the Rue de Paris. What is the thing it's funny about this book? This is light, fluffy, magical reality. What do they call it? Magical realism. You know, it's a mysterious bakery in France. But I had the exact same experience that the woman in the book had. I thought, oh, I'm going to France. I'll read a book about Paris. The girl in the book gets a job at a bakery, and she thinks it's in Paris because it's on the Rue de Paris. And she finds out, of course, it's not in Paris. So we're the same. It's light, it's fluffy, it's sweet. It's about an Irish girl going to work in a French bakery, and mysterious things and romance ensue. It's a B. I can tell you right now, the grade isn't going to get higher. It's fun. It's keeping my attention, but So today, Atmosphere is released, the new TJR, Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I just downloaded the audiobook for that, and I will probably start that tonight. But I have a feeling that's another book. It's about the space program, and it's going to be tense. I don't know if you've read her other books, but they're studies in people, deeply character-driven stories. But there's always a little bit of angst in them. I mean, there's always an angst in any book, or it wouldn't be worth reading. But sometimes she can really turn up the tension, and I love it. In the comments last week, somebody mentioned that they have an artificial hip. And I thought, I need to tell you guys the story of my hips. I am a double bionic hip person. I had my first hip replacement in 2003 and my second one in 2010. And they're great. I love them. So why on earth did I get hip replacements? Well, let's scroll way back to 1989. I am pregnant with my third child. My mother is dying of brain cancer. She eventually passes. It's a very traumatic time in my life. I have my son John on August 30th, and October 1st, we moved to Utah. So I get to Utah, and we're unpacking and moving around, and I started, in moving, you bonk parts of your body, and I realized when I bonked the back of my right calf, it really hurt. And I looked at it, and there was a red spot. It looked like a spider bite or something. And I thought, that is really weird. And my then husband said, you go to the dermatologist and figure out what this is, because it shouldn't hurt like that. Well, I went to the dermatologist, and very smartly, he did a biopsy. He took a lot of tissue out of that biopsy, and he sent it off. And he called me back 2 weeks later, and he said, well, isn't this interesting? You have a kind of cancer I've never heard of before. And I went, oh, interesting. Is that what we're calling it now? He says, you have Merkel cell carcinoma. At this point, in 1989, there were only 250 diagnosed cases in the United States. So he very smartly immediately sent me over to an oncologist. Well, first, he took even more margins around the incision, and I have a scar this big on the back of my right calf as they tried to cut this thing out. I was referred to an oncologist who I have often explained had the bedside manner of a Wolverine. He was just not terrifically kind, but he gave me some information at that point. He said, Merkel cell carcinoma, very rare cancer. At the time, they called it a cancer of the nervous system because your Merkel cells are your touch receptor cells. And he said, we've only seen this in men over the age of 70, and there's really only about a 20% survival rate. And I said, there's only a 20% survival rate for any man over the age of 70. What's the big deal here? And he said, I think you're going to be okay. So he referred me to the oncologist, the radiation oncologist, because this kind of cancer mercifully does not respond to chemo. So I had to do radiation, and that was its whole thing. So I had to go every single day for 6 weeks, and they did the back of my calf. And it was, radiation does weird things to your body. You literally are burned from the inside out, and that was really hard. But when I went in, it was also the time in our history when women were doing glamour shots at malls. And when they asked me to bring in a photo of myself for my chart, of course, I brought in this picture. The radiation oncologist was great. He had a wonderful sense of humor. The people who were my techs were great. And we took care of that, and I got better. And a year later, I found a lump in my right groin. And they had told me, they said, this cancer is creepy because it'll start on the surface, and then if it goes internal, all bets are off because it spreads very fast. It can go from 0 to 60 in a matter of weeks. So I found this lump, spent the night writing the obituary that was to be written and posted when I died of this cancer. And I went in and they excised the tumor. It was indeed Merkel cell carcinoma. So we went back the next year for more radiation in my hip area. This was a much longer process because about halfway through the radiation experience, I just couldn't continue. The burns in my skin, and you can imagine, it was right in the crease of my leg to my hip. And the skin is very thin there, and it got very sore. So I had to even take like a month off of the radiation. Then I had to go back, blah, blah, blah. End of story. Have several years of CT scans, no return of the therapy. Well, fast forward to around the year 2000, 1999. So we're 10 years down the road here. And I am working at a music studio, and I'm teaching classes to young pianists, and I'm up and down off the floor, and my right knee was killing me. I was limping around thinking, what have I done to my knee? And at that time I was dating a man, and he watched me walk at one point. He goes, I don't think it's your knee. I think it's your hip. And I went, my hip? That is so weird. So I made an appointment with a hip dude, orthopedist, that's what we call them. Very cool. He actually was the father of one of my students, so that was fun. He did an x-ray and he said, oh my gosh, your hip is bone on bone. What did you do? And I said, radiation. And he went, huh, okay, that's interesting. We set up the appointment for the surgery. I was all ready to go. It was December of 2002. And he calls me the night before the surgery. And he says, Lian, good Mormon man, just salt of the earth Mormon man. And he says, Lian, I have to tell you, I've been praying about your surgery, and I don't think I should do it. And I went, what? Like, dude, I'm fasting now to get ready. Please, do I get to eat now? He said, no, I think I'm going to send you up to Salt Lake to the orthopedic specialty hospital and he was concerned because of the radiation and my bone there. He was concerned that the way he was going to do the replacement, which is usually they remove the hip socket in the top of your femur, and what they do is the plate that replaces your hip socket, they usually glue it, right? And he was afraid that with the compromised hip socket joint that it wasn't going to stick. So he sent me up to Salt Lake. Fast forward a couple of months, I have my surgery. Sure enough, they did extra things, and I had extra precautions. For example, with my second hip replacement, which was 10 years later-ish, I was up walking full weight on the whole thing, hours after I was awake after surgery. With the first one, because they were so concerned of how this implant would work with my damaged bone, I had to put no pressure on that foot for 6 weeks. So I was on crutches, and let me tell you, negotiating crutches is not fun, not for a long period of time, especially when you're the mom and you're running the show. It's just really hard to do that, but I did. And I went back to work, and I was on crutches and all that kind of stuff. So that's the story of my hip replacements. The first one happened. The second one was likely because I had been making so many physical adjustments, putting weight on the other one, because I don't have any other bone disease. I don't have osteoporosis. I have the bones of a 14-year-old. I'm very, very blessed in that way. And that's probably why the replacement has worked so well and lasted so long. I was experiencing some pain in my left hip last year, and I finally got in to see an orthopedist, and he took, it was literally, I think I may have shared this. The appointment took a total of 6 minutes. It was the most brilliant thing I'd ever done. I got there a few minutes early. They immediately took me into x-ray, boom, boom, boom. I walk into the office. I sit down. I'm there for 2 minutes. The orthopedist walks in, shoves up the x-rays, and he goes, your hips are fine. You have arthritis. Here's physical therapy. Boom. And that was it. I'm like, okay, good. The implants are fine. That's all I cared about. I know I have arthritis, but apparently walking helps. Who knew? Anyway, that's the tale from the heartland by Lian Bremer of her hips and whatnot. So grateful that I have full mobility. I am grateful that I can walk around without pain. And yeah, modern medicine is fantastic. So that's the tale of the cancer/hip. This is the closest thing to cancer I've gotten so far. The squamous cell. Squamous. I hate that word. Squamous cell carcinoma. Where's the other one? Merkel cell carcinoma. Interesting. Merkel cell carcinoma is the cancer that Jimmy Buffett passed away from. Man, over the age of 70. I rest my case. We're getting ready to go to Europe. We're making plans. I am deeply, deeply studying what we're going to do or what we're not going to do. My daughter is kind of said, Mom, you're planning this trip. This is your trip. You do what you want. We'll just go with the flow. And that's kind of how I do trips. I go with the flow. I know where I'm going to be. I know where I'm going to be staying. I know all the potential things we could do, but we're going to go with how we feel in the moment. And we're both very excited. Oh, I have a question for anyone watching this. We're going to be in Paris for 3 days. Is it worth it to go to the Moulin Rouge? Or is it just kind of like a Las Vegas type experience? If you know the answer to that question, let me know in the comments. Hey, email me if you have questions or you want me to talk about anything. Why would you want me to talk about anything specific? I don't know. Like the history of early Renaissance art? I could prepare a speech on that. I don't know anything about it, but I could do it. That's the last thing anyone needs. Anyway, I hope you all have a great week. I know I'm in a great mood. Life is sweet. And here we go. Thanks so much for watching.